In my Minecraft mob ranking, I said that my personal favorite mob in the game were the villagers. If you've somehow never seen one before, they can of course trade items with the player. These trades always involve either the player giving the villager emeralds in exchange for an item, or vice versa. There is a large variety of items that villagers can offer, which makes them quite helpful. However, the next Minecraft update seems as though it'll be updating villager trading, more specifically by nerfing it. Now I'm not 100% sure if this is the next update, seeing as it's been put under experimental features alongside the bundle, and that thing has been there for like 3 years, so we may not see these changes officially implemented for a little while. Now in the past, I've made a video talking about another nerf Mojang has made, that being the new netherite template. In that video, I stated that I wasn't really a fan of it for a number of reasons, but the villager changes they've implemented into this snapshot I actually do quite like. But why is that? Why do I think the game is better with these changes as opposed to what we had before? Well, that's what we're here to discuss today. Now despite me being a fan of the update, it's not perfect, and I will be going over a few of my minor issues that I want them to fix in the future. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right into why villagers needed to change in the first place. They were too overpowered. There's a good reason they topped my mob chart, as they can do a lot for you. There are a few problems with the villager currently, so we're just gonna go one at a time and cover the change they've made to it. So first off, I mentioned the trading before, but I didn't cover much of what they could give you. What villagers trade is based on their profession, so farmers will trade crops, armorers will trade armor, leatherwork, don't trade with them, they're useless. But yeah, the point is, there's a lot villagers can trade, but there's one profession in particular that stands out above the rest, and was one of the primary targets of this update's nerf. That would be the librarian. The reason they're so special is because they can trade enchantments. This is a massive help when you're trying to get the best gear possible, because trying to get certain enchantments from the table can take ages. And for every roll of the enchantment table, you're losing a bit of XP, so the less grinding you have to do, the better. Now that by itself is already great. However, what really pushes the librarian over the edge is the enchantment it sells that can't be gotten from the table. Frostwalker Mending. This is by far the game's best enchantment, being able to repair any tool every time you get XP. It's an essential to have on all of your gear since it basically makes it immortal, which is why I believe Mending is so valuable. But that's where the problem comes in. Mending is supposed to be rare, that's why you can't get it from the table. The only ways to currently get it are from structure chests, fishing, and of course villagers. Now the other two have the luck factor behind them, so they're unreliable to get Mending consistently. Villagers pretty much don't, and on top of that, they're very easy to get. Villages are one of the game's most common structures, and even if you somehow can't find one, you can always cure a zombie villager. Once you have any villager, as long as it's not a nitwit, you could turn it into a mending villager with only the cost of making a lectern. Now yes, at this point there is some luck involved getting the right trade, but also not really. The way villagers work is that they get a new set of trades every time they link with a new workstation. So if you place down your lectern and the villager doesn't have a mending trade, all you have to do is break it and place it again until it does. And while yes, it can sometimes take a while to get the trade you want, it took me an hour and a half to get an Unbreaking 3 trade, and I only ever ended up getting Unbreaking 2. I hate this game. But yeah, once that grind is done, you have access to mending so long as you can get emeralds, which is another thing I have to talk about later in this video, but for now just assume you have infinite emeralds. So that turns what was once a rare and very valuable enchantment to something you could get for all of your gear in just a few hours. Now I'm not saying that having a consistent way to get mending is bad, but having it be this easy sort of devalues this enchantment. So, what was Mojang's solution to this issue? Personally, I had a feeling that a villager nerf had been coming for a long time. If you've ever seen a video talking about what makes Minecraft so easy these days, I guarantee that villagers will come up at some point. Honestly, I was nervous they'd completely remove the mending trade, but luckily they came up with a method that not only still lets you get mending from villagers, but makes the process behind it much more interesting. According to the snapshot, librarians will now change their trades based on their biome type. I might as well go over all of them since this might be some of your all's first time hearing about this. Each biome villager will now get a set of 4 different enchantment books they can trade. Plains villagers will trade Punch, Smite, Bane of Arthropods, and Protection. Desert villagers will trade Fire Protection, Thorns, Infinity, and Efficiency. Savannah villagers will trade Knockback, Curse of Binding, very useful that one, thank you. Sweeping Edge and Sharpness. Snow villagers will trade Aqua Affinity, Looting, Frostwalker, and Silk Touch. Taiga villagers will trade Blast Protection, Fire Aspect, Flame, and Fortune. Jungle villagers will trade Feather Falling, Projectile Protection, Power, and Unbreaking. And finally, Swamp villagers will trade Depth Strider, Respiration, Curse of Vanishing, and Mending. Now after hearing that list, you may be saying, villages can't spawn in jungles and swamps, what are you talking about? Well, despite that fact, villagers belonging to these biomes have been in the game since 1.14. Now, is it just impossible to get villagers of these types? Well, no, it's of course possible to get them, you just have to know how. There are 2 methods of getting jungle and swamp villagers. First off, if you breed villagers in that biome, their child will match where they're born. Sometimes. Yeah, I don't know, it's random. The second method is to cure a zombie villager that spawned in that biome. So now, instead of just getting a free mending trade whenever you see a village, a little bit of extra effort will have to go in. You'll now now have to locate a village, then find a swamp, bring 2 villagers to that swamp, set up a place for them to breed, and then finally you'll get your villager. Or if you get lucky, you may be able to just wait for a zombie villager to spawn and cure that. Both of which add a bit of extra challenge, and that's something the original mending method didn't really have. Sure, some people may find it tedious to transport villagers, but I honestly don't think it's that bad, especially if you go by Nether Roof. Plus, anytime any game makes something harder in an update, people are going to complain, no matter how well thought out the change is. Now, believe it or not, that's not the only extra challenge added on here. For every villager I listed, the last book in that list can only be gotten from the master level, or in other words, you have to unlock every trade. I definitely think that's how it should have been from the beginning, saving the best enchantments for last. So that again is a bit of extra effort that's required to get mending, which actually makes sense and doesn't prevent you from having consistent access to the book. One final thing I want to mention about this is the fact that now, instead of the books being random, the last villager trade will always have that book. That means as soon as you get a swamp villager and place down a lectern, he will eventually have a mending trade once he levels up. So that means this update is essentially replacing the painstakingly annoying grind of placing a lectern 1,000 times with a process that's actually a bit more interesting. Yes, the new method will likely take longer, but you're guaranteed to get the trade at the end of the day. Honestly, I think that's a cool trade-off, and yeah, I might just be saying that because of my bad recent villager experience, but don't you think it's more interesting to obtain a swamp villager than just placing a lectern over and over? In my opinion, this was the absolute best way they could have gone about this. Now it's not only challenging to get the villager you need, but it's also a bit more fun. Again, I'm sure a lot of you will disagree, but I prefer having something interesting and challenging rather than just boring and easy. Now that's not the end of the librarian's changes, but I'm separating this last change because it's one that I don't really like. What I didn't mention before when I was covering the villagers' books is the fact that the max level they can trade has been lowered, at least for the master level books. Now since there's only one level for mending, and silk touch I guess, this change doesn't affect them, but now you can't get max level efficiency, unbreaking, protection, sharpness, and fortune. These books, at least to me, were never really the problem. You can get them from enchanting tables, so this change kind of feels unnecessary. Now this might just be because of how I play, but I personally only ever use villagers for mending and if I'm feeling it unbreaking. My friends on the other hand do use villagers for other enchantments, so yes there are people that do use this feature, but why is that bad? None of these enchantments are as good as mending, and besides unbreaking, you don't even need to put them on most of your tools. The fact that they're now biome dependent, at least in my opinion, is enough of a nerf already. With both the max level nerf and the biome requirement, I don't know why you'd go out of your way to not use the enchantment table. It's far easier and cheaper to just use an enchantment table now, whereas it was a bit more balanced before. On top of that, we also have to worry about Minecraft's worst feature, the anvil limit. If you didn't know, any action in an anvil that would require more than 40 levels you're not allowed to do, even if you have enough levels. It'll say it's too expensive, which is so incredibly annoying. So if you're wanting to combine a bunch of books from villagers together, you better hope you do it right. Personally, I don't find this nerf to be very necessary, and while it won't affect me at all, I think they should set the max levels back to normal so people have more of an incentive to collect villagers from every biome. I should also mention that you can no longer get the fishing rod, trident, or crossbow enchantments from villagers. Optimally, I think they should still have them, but it's also not hard to get what you want for them in an enchantment table, so I don't really care. Also, for some reason, they can get multiple of the same book, which is stupid. I'm not sure if they could before or not, but since the pool of books is now much smaller per villager, it's way more common. I would definitely remove that and not let them have repeats. Now, librarians were not the only ones to receive a nerf, as every villager around the board did receive one major change. Before this update, one of the most powerful additions you can make to a trading hall would be a zombie. Now, at first that may seem stupid, because it would just kill all your villagers. However, you can actually use zombies to infect villagers and then you can cure them back. Now, why would you do this? Well, that's because after curing a villager, it will offer its trades at a discount. That is definitely a good feature, and I think the idea of implementing a zombie into trading halls does provide for a good extra project. But they messed up the code bad. See, for some reason, the cure discounts could stack. That means you can get some pretty insane trades that are basically just free. Like if you have a Fletcher villager, you can cure him a few times and get a trade where you offer the villager 1 stick for an emerald. That is 8 emeralds per log. I really hope I don't have to explain why this needed to be nerfed. The change isn't even super complicated here, it's just that the discounts no longer stack. So it's still worth having a zombie in a trading hall since the discounts do still exist, but now it's just not as stupid. So yeah, I think for the most part the nerfs here were pretty well thought out. Not only do they introduce some new projects to work toward with the biome-based villagers, but they also still let us use villagers for trading without affecting their viability too harshly. Now that would normally be where I end this video, but there was only one other set of changes in this snapshot, so why not bring it up here too? These relate to the Wandering Trader, and it's actually a buff this time instead of a nerf. The problem with Wandering Traders is that it's hard to use them effectively. Their trades are random, where they spawn is random, they eventually despawn no matter what you do, and their trades in general are just not very helpful. It usually depends on what you've found in your world so far, since they usually trade stuff related to biomes. So So if you're really struggling to find a savanna and get a trader with an acacia sapling, you don't make the trade because acacia wood sucks. Really, the only one that's helpful for most of the game is the Nautilus shell trade. The slime ball and gunpowder trades aren't bad either if you don't have farms for them yet. But since you can't keep wandering traders alive for more than a few minutes, there's no way to consistently have these trades. Wandering traders are pretty much just seen as free leads and leather now, which makes them kind of a boring feature. At least in normal survival, in Skyblock they're pretty goated. So yeah, clearly something needed to change here. Now I don't think the solution completely fixes the trader, but any little bit helps. First off, the trader can now give the player logs, iron pickaxes, and invisibility potions. Okay, those trades are awful. Nobody's going to want logs instead of saplings. Iron pickaxes, even though these are enchanted, are not hard to get, and invisibility is just useless. Sure, you could be like a spooky ghost to your friends, but really who cares? Not gonna lie, I think adding these trades to the rotation may have made them worse, because now it's even harder to get the actually good trades. Like seriously, if I get the log trade when I need a sapling, I'm gonna lose my mind. So personally, I would remove these. The other change though is actually pretty good. Now the wandering trader can actually buy some items from the player. Previously, they can only be used to get items, but now they can give the players emeralds, which are obviously nice to have for other villager trades. As of now, there are 6 items they'll accept, being baked potatoes, fermented spider eyes, hay bales, milk buckets, water bottles, and water buckets. Now yeah, some of those are a bit specific, but none of them are necessarily hard to get. If the wandering trader spawns near your base, it's not unrealistic for you to have some of these, or at the very least the materials required to make them. Potato and wheat farms are very easy to set up, water bottles are extremely cheap, and while the other ones are definitely a bit more annoying, getting them quickly isn't out of the realm of possibility. They'll also give you more emeralds, with the buckets giving you 2 and the fermented spider eye giving you 3. Now sadly, you can only do each of these trades once, which does hurt its viability a bit, but I think the trades will at least make the wandering trader a bit more worthwhile. I should also mention that the wandering trader will now have 3 more trades than before, 2 of them being for emeralds and the other just being another one of the defaults. Having more trades is obviously a nice buff to have, so no complaints here. But anyways, that's it for this video. Are you obsessed with the quick charge enchantment and hate this update because you can't get it from villagers? Let me know in the comments. I know this video is a bit shorter than my normal output, but sadly I've just started another college semester, so I need a bit of time to adjust. Don't worry though, normal uploads will hopefully resume shortly, so those of you who enjoy me rambling about Mario for 30 minutes won't have to worry. I hope this video was at least a little bit interesting. I've heard some mixed opinions on these changes, and I wanted to say why I think they were done way better than the last nerf they tried. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.